Hello TYT, hello YouTube. It's Josh Gibbs here with another fantastic wrestling video. As always, thank you to TYT Sports. Thank you to everybody who takes the time out of your busy schedules to watch and comment on these videos. I sincerely appreciate it, and I really hope that you take the time to comment on this one because I know it's going to get a lot of people fired up. Today we're going to discuss who should be on the Mount Rushmore of the WWE. If you've been a wrestling fan for a while, like I have, you've probably had this discussion with your friends. Which four wrestlers should go down as four of the greatest of all time? And invariably, you're wrong. You've always been wrong. You've never said the right names. Until tonight, you're finally going to hear who actually should be on there. And you're not only going to hear who should be on there, you're going to hear why they should be on there. In fact, I'm going to convince you that these four men should be the four names and faces that would be on the Mount Rushmore. And guess what? Two of those names that you think should be on there aren't going to be on there. But by the end of it, you'll agree. Trust me. Now, if you're not familiar with Mount Rushmore, and as an American, shame on you. You absolutely should be. It's located in South Dakota. It was sculpted by a guy whose name is Gutzon Borglum back in the 20s. Took him 14 years to carve these 60-foot tall faces. He was the one who chose these four presidents. The reason why he chose them, he wanted to represent the first 150 years of our nation. And these four men embodied the best of us, the best that America had to offer, the best four presidents, each with specific criteria. And as I looked and read about them, I realized there are certain wrestlers who embody these same traits. So let's dive right in. Now, keep one thing in mind. We are using our minds, not our hearts. Don't get emotional about this. You're going to get really mad. I can guarantee you're going to get angry. But think about it pragmatically. Be practical. Now, right out of the way, we're doing the Titan Sports era. So essentially when Vince took over and created the WWF, WWE. So that means guys like Bruno Sammartino or Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, like those really classic guys aren't going to be on this list. They belong on a monument all to themselves. So it's just Titan Sports era. All right, first of all, the name everyone forgets. The founder. Okay, George Washington is one of the faces on the monument. So Vince needs to be on there. Vince McMahon. Okay, a lot of you right now are already shaking your heads going, this list is nonsense. But think about it. Without Vince, there is no WWE. There is no anything. He is professional wrestling. That is a fact. He created this thing. He created this empire. Okay, George Washington. He struggled to give us independence from England. Vince did the same thing to get independence from wrestling promotions, the individual wrestling promotions of the 50s and 60s that existed. Before WWE, there were all these little factions all around the country, and each one kind of did their own thing, and they all respected the boundaries of everyone else. And Vince said, I can make way more money for everybody if we televise these matches and if everybody comes together under one banner instead of all of these people owning these little kingdoms. In fact, he used terms very similar to a monarchy. He called them fiefdoms. He said there's these little lords and they each have their own fiefdom and they control it. He said, and I wasn't beholden to them. George Washington, he wanted to unify this new nation so that it could control its own destiny. That's what Vince wanted to do. He saw what his father and grandfather had done and he said, I can do that, but I can do better. I can take it to the next level. What is the next logical step? And then George Washington, whether he knew it or not, but he helped form the greatest nation on earth. He was the first president of the greatest nation on earth. And without Vince, there is no WWE. As the founder of Titan Sports, the founder of WWE, he has to be the first face on there. Guaranteed. All right. The second face, the visionary. Well, the next president is Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson, he authored the Declaration of Independence. He defined what the USA was going to be. As a founding father, he had this immense status that he could use to make things happen as the nation was starting to form. He passed the Louisiana Purchase. That's what helped expand the United States so that we could become more powerful. He knew that if we just remained really small, we're very vulnerable to England coming back and saying, hey, we're going to take this back. So he needed the United States to expand, and so he did. It was a huge land purchase for us. So who represents that? That's Triple H. Again, be pragmatic. Think about what Triple H has done. Okay, not only has he been a fantastic wrestler with an over 20-year career that spans since the early 90s, but he became head of talent development in 2011, and he started NXT, which is one of the most successful programs WWE has. He helped create the Cruiserweight Classic. He has been more influential outside of the ring, arguably, than he was inside. You could say, well, yeah, he also started Degeneration X, one of the most popular factions they've ever had. So he had a very storied career as a champion, as a leader. Yes, he got into the family by marrying Vince's daughter, but he was successful long before that happened. So he's a guy who has the clout. He has the respect needed to make these changes. Nobody else could have done what Triple H has done in expanding the WWE in the same way that Jefferson wanted to expand the United States. He loves this business. Triple H wants the WWE to be successful. He wasn't content to just be a wrestler and then go put on a suit and kind of wander around backstage. He actively has fought to make the WWE bigger and better and more global. And he's still doing that to this day. So in the same vein that Jefferson did, that's exactly what Triple H is doing for the business that he loves. All right. Next, the greatest. Probably the greatest president that we've ever had who's on the monument is Abraham Lincoln. He was a champion for the people. Don't get excited when I use that. All right, that was a term long before another famous wrestler used it. He closed the gap between people who had social and economic classes and differences because that's where he came from. He was a man of the earth, and that's what he wanted to really bring into everybody, to bring them all together. He has one of the most lasting legacies of any president we've had simply by passing the Emancipation Proclamation and ending slavery. Upon his death, his Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton, said, "Now he belongs to the ages." And the reason he said that is because Stanton knew that Lincoln is going to be remembered forever for what he had done for this nation, even working with people who didn't agree with him and who quite frankly hated him, but he was able to bring them all together for the good of the country. And just as Lincoln was the greatest, the WWE, the WWF has had one guy who was the greatest. That's Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan is the most recognizable name in professional wrestling history. Your parents know who he is. Your grandparents probably know who he is. Even your kids probably know who he is, even though he hasn't wrestled in a long time. No other name was or still is more synonymous with pro wrestling than the Hulkster. Hulkamania was like a cult. If you remember the 80s, if you're old like some people, present company excluded, you remember that Hulkamania was literally running wild. It was everywhere, brother. And that it made wrestling cool. It was mainstream. It wasn't just nerds who liked pro wrestling. You could wear pro wrestling shirts and not get beat up. When he appeared in Rocky III as Thunderlips, everybody went crazy. And even though Vince really didn't like him appearing in there because they wanted to keep up kayfabe, it did wonders for the business, and the business exploded. There are wrestlers now who not only look to Hogan as their influence and their mentor, but they crafted their entire careers after the things he did. He appealed to kids and adults, young, old, everybody. Hulkamania was a thing that everyone could really get behind and believe in. He main evented 8 of the first 9 WrestleManias. He held the WWE Championship for 4 years, and then helped to give legitimacy to the New World Order, the NWO. Probably a more popular faction than DX. We could argue that in another video, but the NWO is probably the most popular thing that's ever come out of pro wrestling, ever. And Hulk Hogan was a huge part of making that happen. The Turn, one of the greatest moments ever when he joined the NWO, still to this day. Nobody is more influential for the pro wrestling business than Hulk Hogan. That's just the way it is. So as an influential standard bearer, just as Abraham Lincoln, one of our greatest presidents, Hulk Hogan's got to be up there as the greatest of all time that wrestling has ever had. All right, this last one. This is the one that's really going to make you mad, but my logic is sound. Okay. Theodore Roosevelt is the last of the 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore. He represented sort of the last of the guys in the 20th century, essentially moving the country forward. Remember, Mount Rushmore just represented the first 150 years, and it was done in the early 1900s, 1920s. So Roosevelt, he focused on developing America more through natural parks and monuments and forests. But more than that, he wanted global expansion and global outreach. So he really focused on international affairs. I mean, he started the Panama Canal. I mean, that was a big deal for the United States to be involved in that. He served as Secretary of the Navy. He served in the Spanish-American War. He was extremely patriotic in that sense, and that's kind of what made him such a great president. Is a lot of people respected him for the things he had done in those respects. And so he represented the future of America. So who represented the future of WWE? John Cena. I can hear your boos and your hisses from here. Trust me. But think about it. No one in the business today, no current wrestler, has done more for the WWE than John Cena. That is not my opinion. That is a fact. John Cena is responsible for the WWE becoming the global phenomenon and global business that it has become because of who he is, because of his outreach. He's granted more than 500 wishes for kids for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the most of any celebrity in their history. He's the face of the PG era. Now, I think a lot of people, especially older people, that's why you hate John Cena, because he's everything that the Attitude Era was not. But again, we're using our heads, not our hearts. Think of it from a business perspective. I have so much love and respect for the Attitude Era because it has a great place in memory for me. But if I'm the company and my goal is to make money, I can make more money by appealing to parents and to kids and to entire families than I can just to teenage and college kids. The WWE realized this, and that's why they're more successful now than they ever were in the Attitude Era. We can wax poetic all we want about how it was so great back then, but again, the smart business decision, the smarter way to make money was to go family friendly. You don't have to like it, but if you were a member of that corporation and your paycheck and your job depended on it, I think you'd like it just fine. And nobody embodies that more than John Cena. He is built for 10-year-old kids. They want to buy his merchandise, therefore you as their parents buy their merchandise, and then you support your kids doing it. It's a formula it works, and it has worked, and you can just look at their sales, look at how they broke $1 billion not that long ago. That's because of John Cena's global outreach, because he, as the face of the company for this time, helped them to achieve that. He's also extremely patriotic. I don't think anybody is more patriotic than he is. He does a lot of outreach work for the military. He does all these things where he goes to bases all the time, promotes a lot of his movies. When he was in the Marine, that was a big deal. He traveled actually to the base I was serving on at the time and ran an obstacle course and cut his head open, and that was a lot of fun to watch. But he's extremely supportive of the military. So, and while he never served himself, he's at least got that going for him in comparison to Roosevelt. So, that is what it is. All right, remember, we're thinking about this practically. So those are your 4 names. Now, let's address the elephant in the room real quick. There are a few names that we're missing. Why? Like Stone Cold, The Rock, The Undertaker, Ric Flair. Because each of these guys represented that era. Vince represented the passing of the torch, so older guys like Ric Flair, those are associated with him. When you had guys like Hulk Hogan, he was the golden age. He was guys like Macho Man, Randy Savage, and Roddy Piper, and guys who we really have a lot of love for. Triple H, he is the Attitude Era. He's Stone Cold. He's The Rock. He's The Undertaker, guys who became really popular during that time. Cena is the new era and beyond. Guys who I love, like Edge, one of my favorite wrestlers. Chris Benoit, one of the best they ever had. He represents all those guys. CM Punk. They're all embodied in what John Cena represented and then what he would eventually grow up to be. And he's still working hard in the company now. So that's it, folks. Those are the 4 names. I think my logic here is sound. I took a lot of time to think about it, and I stand by it, and I'm prepared to defend it in the comments below. I'm sure you've got opinions on it. I'm ready for you to tell me why I'm wrong, and I'm ready to tell you, no, I am not. So please take the time, comment below. I welcome them. As you know, I respond to almost every comment down there as long as it's of some worthy substance. So talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.